Hello! Peter Parker is a diligent student in his last year of high school. He's passionate about science and journalism, writing articles for the school newspaper. Old Uncle Ben and Aunt May have been raising him since he was just a kid. Perhaps that's why the kid is too polite and shy, and doesn't have many friends. Truth be told, he is not well liked in class, and bullies make fun of him. But very soon, his life will change beyond recognition. High school student Peter Parker is in love with his classmate and neighbor, Mary Jane. But the girl is dating an athlete and bully, Flash Thompson, and Peter has no chance as the class outcast.
Hey! Stop the bus!
Stop the bus! Stop! They've been chasing us since Woodhaven Boulevard.
The awkward Four Eyes keeps staring at his acquaintance, the only one who has shown any sympathy for him. He gets tripped and falls to the dirty floor of the bus. The class goes on a field trip to a genetics lab. Peter's only friend, Harry Osborn, the son of wealthy Norman Osborn, is brought there in a Rolls Royce. Harry doesn't do well in his studies, while the boy's father has heard a lot about the talented Peter.
I read all your research on nanotechnology, really brilliant.
And you understood it?
Yes.
On the trip, they talk about the different kinds of spiders. They are genetically crossbred to produce a special species that possesses all the useful skills of its predecessors. Peter's writing a report for the school paper and finds the courage to ask Mary Jane to pose for a photo. At this time, one of the escaped spiders descends on his arm and bites into his skin. Meanwhile, a general arrives at Norman Osborn's company, Oscorp. The military is shown a glider flying device and told about the development of a special gas that increases the physical strength of rodents by 8 times. However, there is a side effect. The animal becomes very violent and lose their minds. Despite Osborn's objections, Dr. Strom warns him against human testing. Being disappointed at the results, the general threatens to withdraw the funding and gives the company 2 weeks deadline to refine. Peter goes home to his uncle and aunt. They have been raising him since he was a child, since the boy's parents died under mysterious circumstances.
Good boy, God will be thrilled. Just don't fall in your ass.
I'm already on my ass, mate.
Ben was fired after 35 years of work as a chief electrician in a factory. It's difficult to find a new job at the age of 68, but May doesn't lose hope. Peter enters the house and tells them that he doesn't feel well and runs upstairs to his room. His head is spinning and a fever sets in. That same night, in order to save his company from bankruptcy, Osborn plans to conduct a gas test on himself. Strom tries to dissuade his boss, but he is adamant. Norman exposes himself to the green substance and his heart stops. Strom rushes to resuscitate him. Osborn opens his insane eyes and kills his subordinate for doubting the experiment. In the morning, Norman is found lying unconscious by his son. The man can remember nothing of what happened last night. He's shocked by the news of Dr. Strom's death. He also learns that the glider and the flight suit for it are missing. Peter also wakes up and feels better than ever. He no longer needs glasses, and his body is noticeably more muscular. At school, he uses his incredible dexterity to catch Mary Jane and her meal tray when she slips during lunch. His hand sticks to everything he picks up, and cobwebs fly out of his wrists. Inadvertently, pulling someone else's meal tray towards him, he spills it all over Flash Thompson. Peter hurries to leave, but the bully catches up with him and tries to beat him up. Parker easily dodges his punches and knocks his opponent several meters away with a powerful strike, shocking the crowd. The boy himself is confused by his new abilities and runs away from school. He suspects that the change has something to do with the lab spider's bite. Peter climbs the steep wall and jumps from rooftop to rooftop. Only the spiderweb doesn't obey his commands.
Fly! Up, and away, web!
It's a skill he's yet to master. He arrives home late to help his uncle with the painting, and once again hears Mary Jane's father yelling at her in the house next door. Peter accidentally meets her while taking out the trash, and they have a nice chat over the fence. They're interrupted by Flash, pulling up in his new car that was gifted to him. Mary Jane is impressed, and so is Peter. Now, he is looking at used car options in the newspaper. There, he also notices an ad from the local wrestling league, which is willing to pay $3,000 to inexperienced fighters for 3 minutes in the ring with the champion. The only condition is a striking appearance, and Peter starts designing himself a costume. He heads to the arena, telling Ben and May that he's going to the library. The family is worried about Peter's change of character, and Ben insists on giving his nephew a ride and talks to him in the car. The uncle says that he understands the young lad, and that at this age, a man becomes a man. He will remain for the rest of his life. Although Flash Thompson got what he deserved, Peter should not fight with anybody.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Peter's angry that his uncle is holding him up and lecturing him. He says he knows what to do already and reminds him that Ben is not his father. This hurts his uncle to the core, but the man tries not to show his pain and promises to pick up his nephew this evening. Parker signs up to enter the arena, where the bone saw easily dispatches his opponents. The fight host gives the newcomer the name Spider-Man, and soon he knocks out the favorite. He only gets paid $100 for this, as he was in the ring for less than 3 minutes. Peter's forced to leave, and a robber, Dennis, walks in after him and takes all the money from the manager. In revenge for being duped, Peter doesn't apprehend the criminal, who runs right past him. Peter enjoys the feeling of justice, but upon stepping outside, he sees people gathered around his dying Uncle Ben. A criminal has shot him in order to steal a car. The uncle dies in his nephew's arms. Out of his mind with rage and pain, Peter chases the car, using the web for the first time to move between the skyscrapers. He catches up with the robber and forces him to hide in an abandoned building. There, Parker discovers that this is the same Dennis he had allowed to escape earlier. Dennis walks backwards, stumbles, and falls out the window. Parker escapes from the cops. Peter and May are heartbroken. He blames himself for his uncle's death. He could have stopped the killer before the murder, but didn't. At this time, the general attends the exoskeleton tests that he wants to use Oscorp's funds for. The soldier prepares to take off, but is destroyed by a missile fired by a glider pilot in a green suit. His next volley kills the general and the company executives. Time passes, and Peter's class graduates. Mary Jane breaks up with her thug boyfriend, and Harry's father, as always, is more excited about Parker's success than his own son's. At home, Peter misses Ben, and again blames himself for the last words he said to his uncle.
He tried to tell me something important, and I threw it in his face.
Remembering his uncle's instructions, Parker improves his costume and starts saving people from criminals on the streets of New York. The news about the hero in a spider costume spreads throughout the city, and soon his persona becomes the talk of the popular Daily Bugle newspaper. However, its chief director, Jonah Jameson, is not impressed and sees Spider-Man as a fraud and a criminal. He believes that he is the mastermind behind the crimes and is determined to expose the hero. The only problem is that there are no good pictures for the reports.
What, is he shy? If we can get a picture of Julia Roberts in a thong, we can certainly get a picture of this weirdo.
Jameson puts out an ad saying that he will pay anybody who manages to take pictures of the spider. Meanwhile, Peter meets Mary Jane on the street. She is forced to make ends meet by working as a waitress in a rundown cafe. Now, she's dating Harry, from whom she hides the fact that her career as an actress is not working out. Peter's surprised and hurt that Harry, with whom they share an apartment, hasn't told him anything. He returns there frustrated because he's been fired from his job due to constantly being late. It's hard to combine work with being a superhero. He sees Jameson's ad in the paper, and on his next outing, takes a camera with him, which he attaches to a spider web. He takes great pictures, which Jonah puts on the front page, although paying obscenely little for them. Norman Osborn celebrates the success of the company, which was still being funded after the general's death. But the board of directors shocks him with the news that the company has been sold to the very competitors of Oscorp, whose prototype exoskeleton had been destroyed. What's more, Norman is asked to sign his resignation papers. He harbors a grudge against his former associates. Another day, the Oscorp Unity Day and Street Fair takes place. Peter films the event as a journalist and is upset to notice Harry with Mary Jane on the balcony, celebrating with the company's senior staff. The guy prepares to introduce the girl to his father, but the man is late. Suddenly, Peter's spider sense kicks in, and the glider pilot appears in the sky. The crowd applauds the new amusement, but the cheers of the onlookers quickly fade as the Green Goblin shoots at the balcony where the board directors are and kills them with a grenade. Peter embarks on rescuing passersby from falling debris and engages in a battle with the Goblin. Their forces are equal, but the spider nonetheless manages to damage the glider and force the villain to get away. During the attack, Harry gets hit in the head with a rock and falls unconscious, while Mary Jane hangs by a thread over a precipice. Spider-Man saves the girl from falling at the last moment and carries her away on a spider web.
Who are you?
You know who I am.
I do.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Mary Jane begins to fall in love with her savior. Norman, on the other hand, begins to hear a voice in his office that speaks to him. In the mirror, he sees his reflection that tells him that it is the Green Goblin, and it was doing the things that the man would not dare to do on his own. And the only one who can stop them is Spider-Man. He attacks the Bugle's office, where Peter has brought in more photographs. The Goblin takes Jameson hostage and demands that the photographer that takes the spider's pictures be turned over. Parker quickly disguises himself and rescues his employer, but the Goblin uses sleeping gas and takes the spider away for a talk.
In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Why bother?
Goblin assures him that following Jameson, who slanders the spider in his headlines, the rest of the people will also begin to wish for his downfall and demise. He offers the hero to join forces and gain control over the stupid crowd and gives him a few days to think about it. In confirmation of his words, Jonah is not grateful for the rescue, but instead writes of Spider and Goblin as a team that threatens New York City. Peter meets Mary Jane again, and now, more boldly, invites her to dinner. But the girl rushes to meet Harry. On the way, she's attacked by bullies, and Spider-Man saves her from trouble again. This time, she thanks him with a passionate kiss in the rain, unaware that Peter Parker is under the mask. A few days later, Spider-Man pulls a child out of a burning house. He hears screams and goes back inside, where he gets punched in the face.
You're pathetically predictable. Like a moth to the flame.
The Goblin doesn't hesitate to endanger people's lives in order to lure Spider-Man and hear how he responds to his offer. Parker refuses, and they fight in a building engulfed in flames. Parker gets a bad cut on his arm and escapes. That same evening, the Osborn and Parker families meet at Harry and Peter's apartment. At the Thanksgiving dinner, Harry introduces Mary Jane to his father. Norman arrives before Peter, who is late, and enters his room through the window. At the noise, all the guests go upstairs, and Parker hides as he couldn't change his clothes. A drop of blood falls from his hand to the floor, and Norman realizes who is hiding beneath the spider's mask. Possessed by the identity of the Goblin, Osborn hurries away. His son runs after his father into the hallway, trying to stop him. It's important for the guy to introduce his chosen one to his father, but Osborn has no interest in Mary Jane and insults her. The others hear them arguing through the door, and the girl leaves, hurt that Harry did not stand up for her. Later, Norman tries to convince his Goblin personality not to attack the boy, but his madness progresses, and he loses what little control he had left. He attacks Aunt May at her house, terrifying her.
Wow! Those eyes! Those horrible yellow eyes!
Peter realizes that his identity has been revealed. The aunt is recovering, but is under a great deal of stress. Mary Jane visits her and reveals to Peter that she no longer loves Harry because she has fallen in love with Spider-Man. Peter replies that the hero talked to him while the reporter was taking pictures and asked about Mary Jane. Peter, of course, replied that she is the most wonderful girl in the world, whose looks can inspire anyone to act heroic. Mary Jane is touched and takes Peter's hand just as Harry enters the room. The distraught boy goes to his father and tells him that he was right in speaking ill of the girl. Without knowing it, he tells Goblin that Peter has been in love with Mary Jane since childhood. For the first time, Norman apologizes to his son for being unfair to him. While Peter is talking to his aunt, he realizes that it's long been clear to everyone around him that he has a crush on the girl. He calls her, but the Green Goblin picks up the phone. He has kidnapped Mary Jane and is holding her over a precipice, while in his other hand, he holds a broken cable car full of children by a rope. The scoundrel drops both at the same time, offering the spider to choose which of them he will save. The hero picks up Mary Jane in a quick leap, then catches the cabin and hangs on the web. His powers are running out, and the Goblin tries to prevent the rescue. A passing ship helps the spider lower the cabin and Mary Jane down, and pedestrians on the bridge distract and pelt Goblin with trash. But the villain grabs Spider-Man and throws him over the wall into the ruins of an old building. His grenade explodes right in front of Peter, tearing the mask from his face. The wounded spider receives powerful blows again and again. The Green Goblin threatens to slaughter Mary Jane and tries to pierce Spider-Man with a sharp trident. An enraged Peter gathers the last of his strength and fights back, toppling a wall on his enemy. He is ready to beat his opponent to death when the Goblin removes his mask and begs for mercy. Peter didn't expect to see Osborn underneath it.
The Goblin killed. I had nothing to do with it. Don't let him take me again.
He sneakily activates a glider to knock Peter down. Osborn claims he was like a father to Peter, but the guy replies that his real father was his deceased Uncle Ben. The Goblin launches the glider at full speed at Spider-Man, but he dodges. The machine fails to slow down and pierces through Norman's body. Before his death, he manages to beg him not to tell his son of his atrocities. Peter brings Norman's body to his penthouse, where he bumps into Harry. Now, Harry is convinced that Spider-Man has killed his innocent father, and at the funeral, he vows to avenge him. Unaware of who is standing in front of him, Harry embraces Parker as the person closest to him. Peter approaches Uncle Ben's grave, realizing that his loved ones will now always be at risk. Mary Jane finds him there and confesses her love. She kisses him tenderly.
All I wanted was to tell her how much I loved her. I can't.
Instead, he says he can never be more than a friend to her. Mary Jane feels that this is not their first kiss, but Peter is already walking away with a heavy burden in his heart. He has made his choice, a gift and a curse, the fate of Spider-Man. As always, look for the name of the movie in the video description. In the meantime, let us know in the comments. If you were Peter, do you think you would have stopped the burglar Dennis? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, so more awesome stories are released as often as possible.